A single digit changed, below 6, and Florida's housing market moved. In late February, the national average for a 30-year fixed mortgage slipped to 5.98%. It was the first time it fell under 6 since September 2002, and it happened on February 26. For a market that had been waiting, watching, recalculating, that number mattered. Here's why. In November 2203, that same average peaked at 7.76%. Back in January 7, 2021, it was 2.65%, a pandemic low. The path there was bumpy, 7.04% on July 17, 2025, 6.15% to finish that year. Those mile markers set the stage for what came next when the 5 reappeared. Payment math turns abstract talk into action. On a $400,000 home with a 20% down payment, an $80,000 stake, the monthly at 7.76% is about $3,008.06. At 5.58%, a similar loan pencils to roughly $2,546.35. Same house, same neighborhood, hundreds a month between hesitation and a handshake. Florida felt the shift first in activity. In January, member agents across the state closed 16,298 existing single-family sales. That was up 5.9% from 15,384 a year earlier. Pending sales, homes under contract but not yet closed, climbed to 24,666, statewide up 15.2% from 21,411 in January 2025. Beneath the headlines, the middle of the market carried the load, 4,143 closings in the $300,000 to $399,999 range, a 3.3% gain year over year. Another 2,913 homes closed between $200,000 and $299,999, surging 19.1%. That's where first-time buyers typically shop, and the math tilts fastest when rates drop. Price tells its own story. The statewide median sale price for single-family homes in January was $405,000. That was down 1.2% from $410,000 a year earlier. Not a collapse, a recalibration. By January, closed sales for single-family homes and condos had risen for 5 consecutive months, and the steadiness of rates, even more than the level, helped buyers and sellers plan. Zoom in. Across the Florida Panhandle, early 2000-2006, started loud. As of Friday, February 27, one local board counted 493 pending sales. The same day last year, 220. More than double. That's not optimism, that's contracts. In Daytona Beach, the thaw was tangible. A first-time couple getting ready to close. And on the very same afternoon, a showing booked at a pre-foreclosure property in town. When financing costs settle, both the hopeful and the stressed come off the sidelines. Here's the causal chain. Mortgage rates fell below 6, then hovered with more predictability. Predictability gave buyers confidence. Confidence turned into offers, especially in price bands between $200,000 and $399,999. At the same time, sellers adjusted. They watched days on market more closely. They leaned into strategic pricing in the first 2 weeks of a listing, because in this market, the first 2 weeks matter more than the next 2 months. List too high, and the market scrolls past you. That discipline shows up on the ground in places like West Palm Beach. A team there has built a playbook around it, selling an average of 120 homes each year and stacking over 300 5-star reviews for a reason. Tighten the ask, prep the home, and compress the timeline where it counts. The logic is simple. The first 2 weeks are the window. Miss it, and you chase the market instead of leading it. On Florida's West Coast, in Cape Coral, the same principle is measurable. Properly priced listings there receive offers an average of 3 weeks faster than overpriced comparables in the same neighborhoods. 3 weeks in escrow time is a lifetime. It's the difference between momentum and a price cut. Step back again. Not everyone plays the rate game. At the top end, 7 figures and above, many transactions are cash. In that $1 million plus band, high mortgage rates can actually help cash buyers by cooling competition. When borrowing costs ease, more finance buyers return, and the bidding dynamic shifts. Below that line, the reverse happens. Each tick down in rates opens a door. Buyers don't buy rates, they buy payments. That payment is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. First-time buyers in Florida are chasing a monthly they can live with, not a theoretical approval limit. They are being reminded to weigh the whole bill, property taxes and homeowners insurance included, so the purchase fits next year and the year after. And there are signs, case by case, that some insurance bills have been easing. For anyone on the margin, even modest savings can be decisive. The numbers in January sharpen the edges. Of the 16,298 single-family closings statewide, the $300,000 to $399,999 range captured 4,143 deals, while the $200,000 to $299,999 tier landed 2,913. Together, those two bands accounted for more than 7,000 sales. Pending sales at 24,666 suggest more of those price points will cycle through in the months ahead. Meanwhile, a median at $405,000, down 1.2% year over year, indicates sellers have started to meet the market, not fight it. But Florida is not one market. It's a coast-to-coast portfolio, and in the Panhandle, a different engine is humming. Tourism feeding real estate, and real estate feeding back into tourism. In 2005, one of the major landholders and developers along the Emerald Coast delivered a 64% jump in real estate revenue to $234.2 million. The average sales price per home site was $137,000, with a gross margin of 51%. Those are strong unit economics, and they don't happen without demand. Hospitality there is not a side hustle, it's a pillar. In 2025, hospitality revenue reached $215.4 million, a record for the portfolio. Membership revenue at a flagship coastal club climbed 13%. Add one more domino: nonstop flights from Northwest Florida Beach's International Airport to New York City's LaGuardia. Put that together, and you get a tidy loop. More visitors from a major metropolitan area, more heads in beds, more eyes on white sand communities, and more households writing deposits for home sites that average $137,000. Capital followed that momentum. In 2205, 47% of capital expenditure was pointed at growth initiatives. Translation: more rooms, more amenities, more inventory. That's not just a vacation plan, it's a regional land use strategy. And while these are private balance sheet decisions, the spillover is public. Jobs, service demand, and a clear signal: Watersound and its neighbors are still in build mode. Tie it back to rates. For many second home buyers and movers searching Florida's coasts, the 5 in front of a mortgage, quote, won't turn a no into a yes alone. But it can smooth a hesitation into a plan. If a $400,000 loan fell from a $3,008.06 monthly to $2,546.35 by changing the rate from 7.76 to 5.58%, that change is tangible. Even if your purchase price is $600,000 or $800,000, the ratio holds. People feel that in their budgets, then they pick up the phone. Sellers feel it too. In Broward County communities like Plantation, there's a growing acceptance that the ultra-low 2 to 4% mortgage era of 2020 and 2021 isn't coming back. As rates settle into a consistent range instead of spiking week to week, homeowners who have been anchored by that memory are beginning to recalibrate. The new normal isn't a surrender, it's a plan. Modest declines, say from 6.15% at the end of last year into the fives, can still move hundreds of dollars a month. Stability strings those months together into a decision. The Florida market thrives on precision right now. Not hype, not hoping, precision. In West Palm Beach, the playbooks talk about absorption rates, the speed at which current listings are being sold, and the need to win the first 2 weeks. In Cape Coral, the guidance is frank. Overpricing pushes you into longer market exposure. Competitive pricing puts you where buyers are actually searching. The data from that city offers arriving 3 weeks faster on right price listings, turns advice into a stopwatch. On the Space Coast and in Volusia County towns like Daytona Beach, first-time buyers are mapping budgets down to the dollar. It's not how much a lender says they can afford. It's the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the savings buffer. Advisors there talk about preventing a purchase that becomes a problem a year later. The goal is a sustainable payment, not just a signed contract. Against that disciplined backdrop, the January Florida ledger is telling. 16,298 closings, 24,666 pendings, 4,143 closings in the 300,000 to 399,999 band, 2,913 closings. In the 200,000 to 299,999 band, $405,000 for the median, down 1.2% annually. Those are not random numbers. They chart a middle of the market that is active, a top of the market that is still largely cash, and a bottom that is sensitive but not broken. The Panhandle's early year pending spike, 493 this February 27, compared to 220 on the same date last year, adds a second storyline. Lifestyle markets are bouncing sooner. This is not a guarantee of closing volume 1-to-1, but pending contracts are the pipeline. When they double, it signals broad participation. Primary homes, second homes, investors. As momentum builds, one caveat threads through local conversations. This window below 6 may be brief. Some professionals are confident it won't last. That caution isn't doom. It's a nudge to act with intent. Predictability is the real gift here. If rates swing between 6.15% and 5.98% week over week, buyers can still lock a plan. If they climb back above 6 with force, the payment math changes again. The push and pull is visible in Broward County and Miami's northern neighbor, West Palm Beach, where an influx of new businesses and continued growth has kept demand steady even as pricing strategy became more exacting. There, teams have refined 20-step marketing plans, staging, drone videography, targeted digital ads to drive maximum interest in those critical first 2 weeks. Gone are the days of putting a sign in the yard and expecting offers by default. The market rewards those who prep. It passes by those who don't. In Cape Coral, presentation is treated as currency. Professional photography and attention to property condition lift perceived value, which in turn improves time to offer. The phrase that sticks, today's buyers are analytical. They are comparing multiple properties before making a decision. That's not a mood, that's a method. Sellers who adapt to it win time, and time is money in a market that can add a price reduction after 30 idle days. At the same time, the luxury and lifestyle segment on the Emerald Coast is layering resilience on top of rate relief. When hospitality revenue hits $215.4 million in a single year and club membership collections grow 13%, it means heads in beds is not a seasonal blip. When average homesite pricing lands at $137,000 with a 51% gross margin, and real estate revenue grows 64% to $234.2 million. The supply and demand curve is not theoretical. It's a ledger. Add new nonstop airlift from ECP to LaGuardia, and a pipeline of Northeast visitors and second home candidates gets a direct path to beach towns from Panama City Beach to the Watersound area. That connectivity does something subtle but powerful to pricing across Northwest Florida counties. It broadens the buyer pool without relying solely on local incomes, which can support absorption even if rates fluctuate between the high 5s and low 6s. Paired with nearly half, 47% of capital spend committed to growth in 2025, the groundwork is set for continued development and the amenities that follow: restaurants, parks, trails, clubs. Those, in turn, support valuation. Meanwhile, on Florida's East Coast, a different kind of discipline is taking root. In West Palm Beach, expectations and needs are being matched before a listing ever hits the market. Sellers are being told plainly, wrong pricing in week 1 leads to missed opportunities in week 2, and those lost days can't be recovered easily. Buyers are getting the same candor. Confusing urgency with opportunity can cost thousands. Slow down the negotiation, keep your window open. This is where the statewide numbers feed back into individual choices. If you're shopping in the $300,000 to $399,999 range, you're competing with at least 4,143 January closers across Florida. If you're under 300,000, you're in a pool that saw 2,913 deals that same month, up 19.1%. Those stats don't dictate your outcome, but they map the water you're swimming in. The top end stays its own species. In the $1 million and above category, many buyers bring cash. In that realm, high rates have been a feature, not a bug, thinning competition. As borrowing costs soften, expect some financed offers to return to those showings. The competitive balance can change even if the rate moves a quarter point. For everyone else, the path forward hinges on 3 questions. First, will sub-6 rates hold long enough to convert the 24,666 pending contracts in January into a sustained spring surge? Second, will sellers continue to calibrate to a $405,000 median and embrace competitive pricing in week 1, which in places like Cape Coral has meant offers 3 weeks sooner? Third, will the stability buyers crave persist, week in, week out, so families can plan their lives around more than a headline? There are encouraging answers in February's early returns. Pending sales doubling year over year in a Panhandle snapshot, 493 this year against 220 last, says the pipeline is fattening, not simply flickering. The return of a 5-handle 5.98% in late February adds affordability not seen since September 2022. Closed sales rising for 5 straight months into January argues that the bottom of the market is responding. And in Broward County, the acceptance that the 2 to 4% pandemic mortgages are gone is making way for mobility. Move up, move down, move out. At the household level, the discipline remains the same. First-time buyers fix your eyes on the full monthly, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and calibrate to the payment, not the price tag. If the difference between $3,000 and $8.06 and $2,000, $546.35 a month, is life-changing for your budget, lock it in while the window is open. Sellers, build your first 2 weeks with intent. Prep, price, present. Those early days are the fulcrum where outcomes pivot. At the regional level, watch the tourism real estate flywheel on the Emerald Coast. Hospitality at $215.4 million, real estate at $234.2 million, membership up 13%, and nonstop New York access are not accidents. They're inputs. They can cushion the area against rate bumps and support values through the cycle. With 47% of capital spend going to growth last year, the pipeline isn't empty. The statewide ledger provides the anchor, 16,298 single-family closings in January, 24,666 pendings, a median of $405,000. Gains of 5.9% in closings, 15.2% in pendings. A 3.3% year-over-year lift in the 300,000 to 399,999 band. A 19.1% lift under 300,000. These are not euphoric numbers. They are durable ones. And durable is what builds markets. Looking ahead through the middle of 2026, the base case is straightforward. If mortgage rates continue to hold near 6, give or take a few tenths, and the steadiness persists, Florida's transaction volume should continue to thaw. Pending contracts from January at 24,666 can translate into stronger spring closings. The median can hover near $405,000 with a tilt toward modest adjustments rather than sharp swings as sellers meet buyers where they are. In tourism-anchored pockets like Watersound and the wider Panhandle, elevated hospitality revenue and expanded airlift can sustain buyer traffic even if rates lift back over 6. 2 watch items sit on the dashboard. First, the rate trajectory itself. Sub-6 arrived on February 26 at 5.98%. Some in the field believe that window won't last. If rates climb back above 6, decisively monthly payments step up again, and price-sensitive bands $200,000 to $399,999 feel it first. Second, the non-rate pieces of the monthly payment. Taxes and homeowners insurance still shape affordability. There are signs of insurance bills easing in some cases, and that can be a quiet tailwind, but it's a variable worth tracking because it touches every mortgage calculator in the state. There's one more lever under your control: strategy. In Cape Coral, right pricing cuts 3 weeks off time to offer. In West Palm Beach, the first 2 weeks are non-negotiable. In the Panhandle, tourism is turning flights into contracts. And across Florida, 16,298 closings and 24,666 pendings in January prove that when the numbers line up, people move. If this helped you see the Florida market more clearly, by the numbers, by the neighborhoods, and by the levers you can pull, share it with someone who needs the same clarity today.